You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
We have wrapped up the 2015 minor league season. How did this happen? What happened here? What is going on?
Time passed.
I'm so confused.
As it does.
It does, as it tends to do, as time tends to do. Welcome in, everybody. It's the 26th edition of Minor League Baseball, the show before the show podcast. I'm Tyler Mon. He's Sam Dykstra. It's, I would imagine, a quieter day around the office today, Sam.
Yeah. We're just kind of looking around after, a summer of being frantic and preparing for things and trying to get something ready for every night. Now we're just tired. We said time keeps moving, but it feels like it's kind of stopped.
Yeah.
At least in the minor league world. Everything, there are no games left. There is nothing. We turn our attention to the majors, but for our purposes, the summer is officially over.
Once we get right to the end of it, then all of a sudden everything's just done. It all comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah, and it's not even breaks, really. It's not like you kind of ease into it. It literally freezes.
It's all one big climax, and then everything just shuts off. So, or at least for the next few weeks. And then we got the Arizona Fall League starting up very soon. Baseball never stops. That should be the motto of this podcast, as we've talked about so often over the last few weeks. But welcome in. It is the 26th episode of the show before the show. I'm Tyler. He's Sam. You can find us on iTunes on MILB.com. You can stop on over on iTunes and give us a rating, a review, and a subscription there if you would so like. We are also on the old social media machines. Sam is at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. And you can follow Minor League Baseball all over social media at MILB. And so with that, our big topic of the day, the AAA National Championship game last night. The Fresno Grizzlies, the AAA affiliate of the Houston Astros, are your national champions with a 7-0 dominant victory over the Columbus Clippers last night. And there are a lot of storylines in this game. And, congratulations to the Grizzlies. More congratulations to me for picking the Grizzlies. I think that's really the big story that comes out of this, obviously.
I wanted to see how long it was going to take. I should have started a clock.
We're 6 minutes in on the phone call, and I think we were just talking amongst ourselves for like the first 4. So I think it took me like 90 seconds.
Okay, so my over/under of 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, you definitely won if you picked the under. But no, congratulations to the Grizzlies, a fantastic organization top to bottom. And last night, jumped out to a big early lead, got a huge pitching performance. That's as dominant a win as you're going to see in a game like that. In an extremely talented roster, they rolled through the PCL this season, and to get the Game 5 win in the PCL finals and then roll it over to a championship game victory is pretty impressive, and a big congratulations to Fresno.
Yeah, and as you were kind of saying, it was a dominant victory. You look at the score, 7-0, you think, well, that wasn't much of a game. But if you were watching it, just the dominance shown by Chris Davinsky on the mound in his first AAA start. Had a couple appearances at AAA before that, but this was his first start getting the ball. We'll talk with our reporter who was on the scene there, Kelsie Heneghan, about him later. But if you're going to see a lopsided affair, you want it to be a dominant one in a championship game like this, one you can really sink your teeth into. And with the way Davinsky pitched, it really was something to watch and was exciting to see.
The thing that's so cool about Fresno is throughout the entirety of this season, it seems like this was the ultimate goal. They wanted to win the PCL. They wanted to have the success of a good regular season, a good playoff run in the PCL. But you got the impression from Fresno that it all felt legitimized by winning the national championship. And we've talked about, people kind of have their various opinions about what the AAA national championship means, especially because it's just one game and all that kind of stuff. But it is something for these guys to hang their hats on, and to go out and get such a dominant performance on the mound from a guy who's ranked as the number 18 prospect in the organization in his first AAA start. And Chris Davinsky is just, that's like the icing on the cake. And for Fresno, this just seemed like it was a lot of stuff that they wanted to cross off the list, and being able to win a AAA national championship is like a little extra that you get to add on to an already unbelievable season. And that's really cool, because I think so many teams, you get to the familiarity of playing in one league and playing so many of the opponents at the same time. You don't get that across leagues. It's not like Major League Baseball where there's interleague play between the PCL and the International League. So to just see these guys for the first time, it is kind of one of those rare events in sports where, players obviously know each other across team lines, but Fresno and Columbus don't play. I mean, this isn't like a regular thing. It's just such a cool event. And it seemed like Fresno was very, very committed to making sure that this final step was going to be accomplished.
Yeah, and I think the tagline, it never will be this. You can't exactly stick this on a bumper sticker or under a logo for a slogan or anything, but if it exists, you might as well win it. And that's, anybody you talk to who plays in a game like this, even in the playoffs, anything like that, if the situation is made that you can end the year with a trophy, end something to hang your hat on, bring something home, you might as well go out there and win it. And when you do it in the way they did it, I can't imagine what it's like going home the next day. I saw a picture of Davinsky carrying the MVP trophy that he got for his pitching performance through the airport. Because if you have that, you might as well show it off. It was kind of like that. I can't remember what the ad is for, but there's just that group going through Vegas, just holding up a trophy that ends up being a plant case. If you have it, if you can come up with something, you might as well show it off to everybody. And it's a little bit of extra motivation to heading into the off season. Some of these guys will be going to the fall league, like you said. Some will be going to the winter leagues. A lot will be going home, and you want to have those memories of a season well ended if you can get it.
There is a lot going on in that Astros organization, and we talk about that regularly. And so many, the ultimate focus of minor league systems everywhere is player development, getting guys to the major leagues in the best possible fashion for themselves and for the big league club. But there is something to be said for organizations and teams, and especially for the players themselves who learn how to win in the minor leagues. And Mark Appel tweeted out after his team won, after Fresno won the final game of the PCL finals, Quad Cities 2013 with a little ring emoji, Lancaster 2014 ring, Arizona Fall League 2014 ring, Fresno 2015. Now he could put 2 rings on that, and that is something. Fresno, was one of 7 Astros affiliates to make the playoffs. And Kelsie, who we're going to talk to in a little bit, had a great story from El Paso earlier this week about how the Grizzlies are one of those emblematic teams proving that the Astros plan, this big experiment that the Astros undertook a few years ago, it works. This is putting Houston right now is contending for a division title probably a year before everybody thought they were going to at the major league level, and all their minor league teams do is win and compete for championships, and there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, and they really have that kind of, it's a football slogan, but, they have that mentality of next guy up. They just churn through guys, bring it, whether it's Davinsky, whether it's A.J. Reed moving up, whether it's Francis Martez, who's climbed all the way from, A-ball to Double-A in his first full season. They just have this depth. You mentioned Davinsky's only the 18th ranked prospect. He showed better stuff than that last night. When you have those guys who can perform at every level, and then you bring them up, and you don't see a team like Fresno or Corpus Christi or Lancaster. You don't see them take steps back necessarily as they bring in fresh blood, as any minor league team does. We saw a couple teams that were really good in the first half. We'll talk about this later, but Chattanooga, was really, really good in the first half. Lost some of those really good prospects, and then kind of struggled in the second half. They won a championship, but they didn't have that same talent in the second half they did the first half because it kind of dropped off like that. Houston system, it just has not been that way this year. They could have. You can make an argument that they should have brought up A.J. Reed just to play in Fresno if they didn't already have John Singleton there, who's trying to break the Quad A mold, but is certainly a good AAA player. So like Kelsie wrote about, this was their design. They wanted this type of thing to happen, and now you're starting to see the results at the major league level too. They are slipping a little bit. Obviously, it's well talked about all across baseball. They're losing they've lost their grip on the AL West, but they're still a playoff team. And for a team that would have been happy to play above 500 ball this year, that this is a dangerous system going forward. It's a dangerous system now in the minors. It's a dangerous team in the majors now, and it's going to be like that for the next 3 to 5 years, just because it's built so well.
And we do want to, of course, give our big congratulations to the Columbus Clippers on a fantastic season as well. Columbus falling yesterday in the championship game, but an outstanding year. The International League's West Division champions, they outlasted actually their division rivals Indianapolis in the championship series and the Governor's Cup finals. And it's been a great year for Columbus, and I think also that's an encouraging sign for an organization that sort of needs an infusion of some life as well, because the Indians have they've fallen into a weird sort of in-between stage where there's not really the major league success has come in spurts. It hasn't been extremely consistent, but they've had a lot of talent on the way as well, and even Double-A Akron was exciting. Some of their Class A advanced talent is very exciting that's already moving up the ladder. I mean, guys like Clint Frazier, have kind of taken their knocks who have been younger, but there's been a lot of movement among those guys throughout these levels that shows they're probably going to be in Cleveland before too long as well. So Columbus, I mean, it obviously you leave with kind of a sting in your mouth from having a performance like that thrown against you yesterday, but to be a team that competes over the course of a very long season in these AAA leagues. I mean, there's no first half, second half titles. The International League, they end up winning basically via tiebreakers, the same record as Indianapolis at 83-61. But you get into the playoffs, a long playoff road, and you get an International League championship. It's a great season for Columbus too. It'll go down with a loss in that final game, but for what they accomplished winning the International League, a great year.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of hit on it there. I think they're probably going to be a better team next year. I mean, a lot of their talent right now or a lot of the Indians' talent right now is at that Double-A, Class A advanced level. I mean, they can certainly get to a point next year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Bradley Zimmer or Clint Frazier are playing that outfield out there, and Rob Kaminsky, the guy they got this year in a trade with the Cardinals, he's been all year at high A, but he could certainly be a high mover if he proves himself at Double-A Akron, to start next season. And then you just keep going down the list. Mike Clevenger was a guy who came up for Columbus, was a really, really good playoff pitcher after spending the entire regular season at Akron. So, all the best talent, I think, in that system has yet to hit Columbus. And I think next year that could all kind of culminate at the same time. And, it's an exciting time to be a Clippers fan. It could be an exciting time to be an Indians fan if you're looking for hope in that system. You already have some pretty good hope in Francisco Lindor, who you could certainly make a case for. I would make the case for AL Rookie of the Year, and it's only a matter of time before that talent hits the highest level of the minors.
So a big congratulations to the Fresno Grizzlies and the Columbus Clippers, and Fresno especially for coming out with that win last night. And again, just a phenomenal organization top to bottom. Ryan Young, the media relations staff over there, do a great job keeping us informed and getting us involved. The myriad of times that we have to write about Fresno, it seems like every week. So big congratulations to all of them. And one thing that's not to be lost in the shuffle in this, Fresno manager Tony DeFrancesco becomes one of the very, very few managers to win AAA titles in the Pacific Coast League with two different teams. He led Sacramento to a title and gets a win last night. And again, a guy who, you talk to Tony and it's just, there's a plan for everything. And there's a bigger picture for everything. And he's the first one to stress, the ultimate goal is for us to help the Astros win, but he knows how to mold those guys at that level. And that's what successful minor league managers do. And, just both of these organizations, top to bottom, really could not. I mean, there are crown jewels in minor league baseball, and those are two of them. And that was a fun game to watch last night, too. And I got to get down to El Paso because that ballpark looks ridiculous.
Well, you should talk to Kelsie about it and do all the background info on what to do and what to eat and the whole Ben's Biz scouting report on what it's like in El Paso.
We'll have more on that topic with our own Kelsie Heneghan, who will join the show later, probably from the airport in El Paso, I think. And we'll hear all about the AAA championship game experience. And with that, we're going to dive into Three Strikes for episode number 26 of the show before the show. And last night's champion, not the only champion to be crowned throughout the world of minor league baseball since we last spoke with you. In fact, we've had a lot of them. Myrtle Beach in the Class A Advanced Carolina League, Hickory in the Class A South Atlantic League, Midland in the Double-A Texas League, Bowie in the Double-A Eastern League. Of course, the AAA champions, as we've discussed a little bit, in Columbus and Fresno from the International Pacific Coast Leagues, Rancho Cucamonga in the California League, Chattanooga in the final Double-A League, that's the Southern League. Sam, give me some thoughts on a team that stood out to you, and congratulations to all of those winners because it's been a fun playoff season.
Yeah, that was just a mouthful to think about how much, and say how many champions we've kind of crowned in a 1 week span. A lot to catch up on. Check out all our stuff on that if you haven't already. But One team that kind of stuck out just kind of for me was the Bowie Bay Sox, winning their first ever Eastern League crown. They've been in the Eastern League, I think, for, let me double check. Yeah, it's 23 years now, so this is their first championship. Kind of a cool thing for the Bowie area people to have a trophy to claim as their own, and something good for the Orioles system, Orioles prospects around there. For a league that has 12 teams in it right now, you would think the turnover would be pretty good and that they would have had a championship by now. But now they finally get that one to call their own. Guy who kind of stood out for me there was Mike Yastrzemski. We're coming out with a piece on postseason, players, or best postseason players by league, and he was our pick for the Eastern League. Guy hit 406, had 10 different extra base hits, 2 homers, 2 triples, and 6 doubles for the Bay Sox, coming off a year in which he had a big breakout year last year. Everybody likes to talk about the last name, kind of made a name for himself last year. Didn't quite do so well at the AA level this year at a 246 average, 316 on base, 372 slugging, and then he kind of comes through, in the clutch when the Bay Sox really needed it. Something for him to carry into next year, and kind of a cool story with the way they clinched it. It was a Game 5 against Reading, a very good Reading team, with Nick Williams, J.P. Crawford, a bunch of other Phillies prospects and guys they got from the Ranger system there. But Garibez Rosa, who's a guy who's slowly working his way, through the Orioles system, hits 2 homers in that game for Bowie to help them get the Game 5 win. And for postseason, it's a lot about teams, and we like to celebrate team accomplishments there. And as much as we celebrate prospects all year, it's pretty cool to see a team like Bowie get their first Eastern League title. And as you can see on a lot of the pictures, but particularly the one we have on their story on the site right now, just the excitement surrounding the team, the water bottles going off, all that stuff. That's what the postseason is all about, no matter where you are, what level, what league, what sport you're playing. So that was what kind of stood out for me. What about for you, Tyler?
I really thought that the Chattanooga Lookouts kind of stood out as the team of the postseason to me, because that city obviously has been through a lot this year, and
right.
We know that the Lookouts were kind of an outlet for that team, or for that city, as a distraction, obviously, from the shooting in Chattanooga this summer. We know they did the hat exchange and kind of a charity tie-in together with the Charleston River Dogs, and things that you don't ever want any team to have to deal with anywhere. But sports are a distraction. Sports are escapism, and sports help people to get through difficult times because it gives you that little breath, that little time where you can escape. And Chattanooga, that city needed something like that, and the Lookouts provided that for them. And for them to end their season with a title, their first Southern League title since 1988. They've lost in 3 championship series since then, by the way. Finally able to pull one off. They were swept last year when they were a Dodgers affiliate. They get it done this year as a Twins affiliate. Was really, really cool. And again, it's not the traditional or conventional reason why a team impresses you most, but Chattanooga's second half was not very good. This is a team that really took off, obviously, in the first half with Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano and some of the top prospects that they had there to start the year. But the second half, they finished 4 teams down in the standings. They're in 4th place out of a 5-team division, and to come back and do what they did in the postseason, stick it out, get a Game 5 series win over Biloxi, a team that had a ton of momentum and has a ton of talent, really showed me a lot about Chattanooga. And, from things like Doug Mankiewicz managing the Class A Advanced Fort Myers Miracle to a championship last season in the Florida State League, and then doing it this year with a lot of the same guys in the Southern League in Chattanooga was really cool. What impressed me, I think, the most about Chattanooga is that they did it without a whole lot of huge contributions from their biggest guys. Max Kepler, it felt like, hit about 800 in the playoffs because most of his hits were homers. Max Kepler only batted 188 in the postseason. It was really 2 former Red Sox prospects and guys who aren't really prospects in the conventional sense. In the top prospect sense of the word anymore. And Hecker Meneses and Shannon Wilkerson really carried that team. Meneses batted 273. Was a pretty good member of this lineup throughout his entirety of his playoff stay over 9 games. Shannon Wilkerson's a bit of an older guy, but 9 games for him, he batted 303. This team as a whole had a 616 OPS and a 212 team average in the postseason. They only scored 36 runs in 9 games. I shouldn't say only. That's not terrible because postseason baseball is always tough, but the pitching staff was there. The pitching staff was phenomenal the entire time through. And to see what, Jason Wheeler's able to do, to come out in relief in the final game and close out a win last night. And seeing that celebration video with how elated that crowd was and the way that team celebrated, I thought was a very, very cool thing for Chattanooga. So congratulations to all these champions. Those ones kind of stood out to us, but man, we had a lot of really good series too. I mean, it wasn't just, a couple of series that went the distance and a whole lot of other duds. There were some really good series throughout.
Yeah, definitely. We had, on Monday, we had a couple game fives. Normally, the way the schedule kind of works out and the way a lot of these finals work out, that you get a day off or two between, where a lot of playoffs end and where the AAA National Championship starts. But we were running right up against that with West Michigan winning and Chattanooga winning Monday night, taking their crowns. Every series was packed with a lot of different things. They certainly kept us busy, and going right up until that AAA championship.
Let's talk about, for Strike 2, one of the games we were just discussing, sort of. The Southern League Championship game on Monday night ended with the Chattanooga Lookouts getting a win, but it ended with two guys personally getting gigantic wins in their careers. Max Kepler and Jorge Lopez both get the call to the big leagues right after the final game of their 2015 minor league season. Kepler had a home run in Game 5, hit 3 home runs over the course of the postseason, and has been a terror throughout the entirety of the 2015 season, Southern League MVP. Jorge Lopez of the Biloxi Shuckers, the Southern League Pitcher of the Year. Very good season. Not a great final performance from him, but a guy who the Brewers really have a lot of faith in as he continues to grow. That's some pretty awesome news. Maybe even more so for Lopez. Your team goes out and takes a really brutal loss, and it's all right. It's okay, kid. You're going up to the show. That's pretty cool for both those guys.
Yeah, I can't remember which player tweeted. I don't think it was Lopez himself, but there was, I think, 6 different guys were sent from Biloxi to the majors right after their loss yesterday. And there was a picture of them in an elevator just all going, I think it was in the airport going to Milwaukee, and they were just all smiling from ear to ear. You take the sting right out of that loss, and congratulations, you're going to the show and getting on the biggest stage. For Kepler, it's kind of, let the good times roll. You help your team, like you said, win a championship, Southern League title, and keep on playing, keep on moving. He's not necessarily going to get too much playing time right now in the Twins' packed outfield. We talked about Buxton before. They've got plenty of other guys, Torrey Hunter, Aaron Hicks, a couple of other guys out there. But he is rewarded for what you said. Like you said, was a very, very good season for him. 322 average, OBP above 400. Guy hit 32 doubles, 9 homers, 18 steals. This was really a breakout season for a guy who, before the season was just kind of a novelty in that he came from Germany, and wouldn't it be cool to have a German-born player in the majors? And now we're going to get to see that, and he's going to get a little bit of taste of this. And, he'll probably be starting out the year next year, AAA Rochester. But, if he shows a little something here, that he'll definitely get a call to big league spring training next spring. This is a guy who's definitely worked on his swing this year. I know Jake did a stock watch on him back in July, early July, and talked about how the guys at Chattanooga were just making him more aggressive, trying to get him to pull the ball a little more. He was aiming a lot towards left center. And once he kind of went away from that, was more aggressive, that's when you saw the numbers start to pop. So for Kepler, it's a very exciting opportunity for him to just get that taste. And like I said, he might not be called up again until mid next year if they can find a place for him. But, to get that taste and to get that, you just have that novelty of that, a German-born guy in the majors will be definitely an interesting storyline to watch here, and obviously across the seas. And I'm sure they'll be following him over there as well.
Should be really cool. Donald Lutz has been up in the big leagues, but it's kind of a different story. He was an American-born kid who went over to Germany, and Major League Baseball is expanding those frontiers so much, and Europe is a kind of an untapped market, maybe an undertapped market. It's not totally untapped, but yeah, that'll be a really cool extra dimension. So congratulations to those guys on their promotions to the big leagues, and not a bad way to finish out your 2015 minor league season. And Sam is going to take us through, again, which I think I say every week, but if you haven't checked out Sam's Tool Shed stuff, go read it, because it's some of the best stuff that we have up on the site regularly. And Lewis Brinson is the topic, the AAA Round Rock Express star of late, and a Texas Rangers prospect who is one of those sky's the limit kind of guys. Tell us about Lewis Brinson, Sam.
Yeah, and this was just kind of something I was looking through, trying to come up with something for Tool Shed, and just kind of got latched onto his story. Just, we've talked at length on the site and on the podcast too about how kind of a quick riser he's been this year. Started out the year in high desert and was doing what a lot of people do in high desert, and he was hitting in bunches. Had a 337 average there, 13 homers in 64 games. The guy was certainly producing. And then you start to ask the questions. Okay, he can do it in the Cal League. Can he do it other places? And they sent him to Frisco, and he did it there as well. Hit a 291, 873 OPS. And then when I got to talk to him, I asked him, so you spent a month in Texas League, and they already call you up to AAA. What was that like? Because they wanted him to help out Round Rock, who obviously at this point it fell to Fresno in the PCL finals, but they wanted him there for the part of the playoff push. After starting the year at High A, they thought he was ready for that challenge, and he certainly showed it. He even said it was a surprise himself. Didn't exactly expect that to come. The normal progression is you do well at a level, you get called up, and then you stay there for a prolonged period of time, especially when you're somebody like him. He's 21, was a first round pick back in 2012. But for him, this was, going through all this, it was certainly a breakout season for him. Only one of a handful of guys who had an OPS above 1,000 in the major leagues, or in the minor leagues, excuse me. Hit 20 homers, 18 stolen bases, was showing power, was showing speed, was everything you read about him defensively is glowing. And I really wanted to get into how he went from, a guy who back in 2013 was hitting just 237 in Hickory. As a youngster, obviously, he was still a teenager back then, but what happened in between? And he said it really came down to confidence. He was a first-round pick. He knew he had that confidence in himself. He knew, the Rangers had a little bit of confidence in him that they could send him to full-season ball, in his first full year in the system a year after he was drafted. But then that kind of took a hit when he, like I said, was hitting in the low 200s. He struck out 191 times in 447 at-bats. Was swinging and missing a lot and wasn't quite understanding what was going on. And you kind of learned that he was losing that confidence in himself a little bit. The more he went about it, going into his second year, he kind of realized, and at-bat's not over just because I'm down 0-2. I still need to be aggressive. I still need to, be looking to hit the ball, and just make contact, because for somebody with him, like him, he's got that speed, and he's got certainly that bat on ball ability, that smooth swing, where if he makes contact, it's going to be loud contact. And even if it's not loud contact, he can steal a couple of hits with his speed. Let me just make sure I get the numbers right here. But with his BABIP numbers, this guy produces a BABIP, which is batting average of balls in play, of 375. So if he can get that ball into the field somehow, there's a pretty good chance, certainly better than others where normal BABIP numbers are around the 300s. He's going to get on base and, rack up these hits like he's been doing this year. It was just all about kind of talking in confidence with him. And once he figured out that approach that, I still need to be aggressive even when I'm down the count. Don't worry about the strikeouts. That's when the strikeouts began to fall, and that's when the hits started to come in. One thing I talked to him about was, now you have expectations. Now you're a top 100 guy. I think he's in the 60s right now in terms of overall prospects. He's number 68 according to MLB.com. There are expectations. A lot of people expect him to be, the starting center fielder for the Rangers at some point, even as they try to figure out their own outfield issues right now at the major league level. The season he's putting up is going to start putting expectations on. And then, what if he doesn't meet those expectations? Or is he going to worry about his confidence? And he kind of gave me the money quote, which was, the only person I worry about pleasing is myself and my mother, which was great, because then he said his mom finally got to watch them all this year because she finally figured out how to use the MILB app, which is great because I got to link to that in a quote. So we got to push the.
That's a rarity. That's a big winner for a minor league writer to be able to link to the app in a quote.
Yeah,
it's a big
pushing
one for us.
It's pushing the product without having to do it myself. I swear.
Hashtag branding.
Yeah, branding. We're feeding the brand. I did not feed that to him. He brought it up himself. So I was like, that's perfect. But yeah, this is a guy, he's not worried about the expectations that are coming upon himself. He's confident where he is now. He's probably going to get a call to Major League Spring Training, and could be one of those guys that, the Rangers, we saw it a couple of years ago with Jackie Bradley with the Red Sox. If you have a really good spring, teams aren't necessarily going to be scared to throw you into the fire. And, with this year of the prospect, the Rangers could certainly fall into line with that for him. And given the way he's hit at every level, I mean, even in Round Rock, I think it was Friday night, he hit 2 homers in a game. His skill set is just translating everywhere. So between offense, like I said, the defense that has earned raves, he's certainly going to be one to watch. And I expect he'll be even higher than 68 when MLB.com updates their rankings this offseason.
So go check it out. The Toolshed column is up at MILB.com right now. Coming up next, we're going to rehash last night's 2015 AAA All-Star Game from El Paso, Texas. Kelsie Heneghan joins the show for the first time.
Calling in from the El Paso airport right now, where the AAA National Championship took place last night, is making her podcast debut with us is Kelsie Heneghan. How's it going, Kelsie?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Yeah, so like I said, this is your podcast debut. A pretty good time to make one, considering you were at the AAA National Championship game last night with Fresno beating Columbus in that game yesterday. Just kind of describe what the scene was like, and obviously what stood out to everybody who was there, everybody who watched on TV on NBC Sports, was the performance of Chris Davinsky. So what did you see out of him?
Oh, yeah, first of all, it was just a pretty crazy game because obviously in baseball you don't have a one-game playoff too often, and everyone's pretty stoked about winning their individual league, but you could tell they still really wanted to win this game, and it was still a pretty special thing for even the El Paso fans too. And even at the end they got into it, and they were really chanting PCL for Fresno, so they really got into it. But yeah, like you said, Davinsky was clearly the star. He was named the MVP after carrying a perfect game into the 6th inning. And I talking to the manager, DiFrancesco, after the game, and the word he just kept reiterating was dominant, and really that's what he was. And he didn't walk anybody in 7 innings. His changeup was especially outstanding and notable. But really, it's just the command and control. Just looking at the stats after the game, he threw, I think, 15 balls in 7 innings, so it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at your story, you wrote a recap in the sidebar on the game. You had a kind of cool quote from Tony Kemp, Astros prospect, who said, "We call him the Dragon. We call him that nickname because every time he goes out there, he's fearless and he believes in himself." How could you kind of see that out of Davinsky? And obviously, what was one of the biggest starts of his career, if not the biggest start of his career.
Yeah, just talking to him the day before. This was also his first AAA start. He made a couple of relief appearances against Round Rock in the championship series. But this was his first start, and he didn't seem nervous at all. He seemed pretty calm. I asked him about handling pressure, and he said that that adversity either breaks men or it makes men break records, and he wanted to break records. And he's already thrown a no-hitter in his career, and here he was almost throwing a perfect game in one of the biggest games of the year.
And kind of describe to us what the scene was like afterwards. I mean, like you said, a lot of the times we like to focus on the league championships, and this is the one time where leagues at the same level kind of come together. So it's more or less a glorified exhibition, but they are playing for a trophy. So what was that scene like when the Grizzlies did win and clinch that AAA national championship?
Yeah, you could definitely tell that they did want this, and as soon as that last out was made, the pop-up to the catcher, they all just ran out. And at first they were tackling each other and throwing water bottles at each other at home plate, and then it moved to the mound when they were just hugging and cheering and chanting. And you could tell when they were waiting for the trophy presentations and all the speeches afterwards, they were like kissing the trophies. You could tell they were just ready for that big celebration back in the locker room with the champagne and the beer and all the fun stuff. So they definitely were itching for this last celebration of the year.
You didn't catch any of it yourself. Did you get any spray back from champagne or anything?
No, I didn't, but just talking to Davinsky after the game, he had to take his shirt off because it was drenched in champagne. But even just walking out, he just smelled like champagne, and walking by the clubhouse afterwards, there's just like this big waft of celebration and winning, really.
Yeah, there you go. It's the smell of victory, I guess.
Yes.
Just kind of moving on to a sidebar you wrote for us. The win meant a little something extra to Grizzlies manager Tony DiFrancesco. A guy who was diagnosed with cancer, I think, last spring training, not this year, but the one before that. What did this championship mean to him, and what was it like talking to him about that whole process?
Yeah, he like you said, he was diagnosed in spring training of last year, but he only sat out 2 months about to go through treatments and to recuperate, and then he was back on the field because just talking to him about it, he was just like, I was itching to get back. I couldn't not do it. So he fought his way back. He was coaching last year, and then he came back this year again, and just winning the PCL first of all. He said he was pretty choked up after that because it just meant that he was back after battling for so long. And then to win this, he won the Brooktown Showdown, which was the original AAA National Championship a few years ago. So he's now one of only 2 managers to win the national championship twice. And huge thing how special it was to be back. And also that he said that because he is back and he is back to motivating players and competing, which are the 2 things that he loves most, that he feels like he has his edge back after all that he's battled.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking before this about how you said he seemed to over talking about it. I mean, it's been a year, obviously. I'm sure he's talked about it with plenty of people. But how is that kind of a good sign in that he did want, he is moved past this and is part of his past. It's not so much part of his present anymore.
Yeah, even after he came back last year, he had a day or 2 to talk about it with his players and with the media, and then afterwards he said, I'm done, let's talk about baseball. So he was ready then. And I think now it kind of got stirred up because the emotions of really being back and getting that trophy really solidified his coming back, but I think that, yeah, he is ready to move on because obviously it was an unfortunate thing, but it's not something that he wants to dwell on. He wants to focus on continuing to motivate players.
Right. And then, I mean, at that level, that's what it really is about. I mean, it's player development and motivation for guys because you're just at a stepping stone trying to get them to that next level. So that was a really good story. If you get a chance, everybody who's listening at home or wherever you are, just check out that story on Tony DeFrancesco that Kelsie did after the AAA National Championship game. And I kind of want to touch on something you wrote about beforehand. You got to talk to a couple of the Grizzlies at media day there the day before, and the big takeaway there was just kind of how all the winning that's happened in the Astros system. We talked about it on the podcast before, we talked about it on the site, is starting to show itself at the minor league level with all those teams making the playoffs, and obviously the Grizzlies winning PCL and AAA championship. How much are the players kind of buying into the Houston system and working what is the Astros plan to make what's obviously been a system that's working for them?
Yeah, they really are. Just talking to Tony Kemp, when he was saying that when he was at spring training this year, he was noticing all of the big league players and all the Houston guys and the manager Hinch just really buying into the idea that the Astros are here. And they've been working towards this for a long time, and here it's finally happening. And Tony Kemp could see it, and it made him believe in himself more and believe in the idea more. Obviously, like we've been hearing about the Astros building as an organization for years, and Fresno winning this title, I think, really solidifies them being here. They've been winning at the lower levels for a while. I think Mark Appel tweeted a photo of all the rings he has in emoji form, of course.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't mean anything because it was at lower minor league levels, and now here they are winning Fresno's first title and winning an Astros first affiliated AAA title in a while, and obviously Houston's making a playoff run too. So it really shows that they've made it.
Yeah, and speaking of that Appel tweet, I was just looking at that myself. Quad Cities 2013, Lancaster 2014, AFL 2014, Fresno 2015 for Appel. When you were talking to him, did it feel? I mean, I hate to put it this way, but does it almost feel old for him winning at all these levels, or has it gotten to the point where he expects to win a championship wherever he goes? I mean, obviously he's had an up and down individual career, but with every team he's on, he keeps winning like this. So how does he kind of react? Is it just, does it still have that fire with him, or is it so, I expect this to happen?
Yeah, no, I think he's a pretty competitive person. So, like most baseball players are, especially as someone at his caliber. So I don't think that it will ever get old for him, but you definitely seen that he's just enjoying the ride that it's been. Like you said, he has had an up and down personal career, but to have it all come together at the end of the year as a team, I think is what has been really important for him.
Yeah, and just before we let you go here, I know you got a flight to catch and you're coming back to the East Coast from El Paso, but saw one of your tweets last night about how the El Paso crowd was kind of joining in the PCL chant. What was the crowd like? I know it's at a neutral site. It's not really close to Fresno or Columbus. Tough for maybe local fans to get into the game, but 9,000 plus fans were there. What was this team like amongst the crowd?
Yeah, they were really into it. You could tell it seemed like they were cheering more for Fresno at times, but not in a bad way, but that's just because Fresno had all of the hits, and Fresno also had Devensky, who was not allowing any hits. So they had the big moments for the cheers, but I think that the fans were pretty equal, rooting for both teams. The times that they really cheered were for Adam Moore of Columbus, though, because he was on El Paso last year. So the fans really remembered him and embraced him. So they got really excited for him. But like I said, at the end of the game, the PCL chants started breaking out, and they didn't care that Fresno was a team that eliminated El Paso. They were just happy that their league won, and so they were pretty excited. And a lot of them stayed behind afterwards to watch the trophy presentation and to watch the players celebrate.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Kelsie, for joining the podcast. I hope this has been a good first experience for you. Rolling into the off season, we'll have more from all our writers, across as we go into the off season with Oregon All Stars and AFL coverage and all of that. So this is your first time. I'm sure it won't be your last. But again, check out all Kelsie's stuff on the website about the AAA National Championship or stuff about the Fresno recap, the sidebar, like I said, about Tony DiFrancesco, stuff on the Grizzlies and the Columbus Clippers. And you can follow Kelsie on Twitter at Kelsie_Heneghan. She has a lot of her stuff, a lot of pictures from the AAA National Championship game and a lot of other good content you can follow her there for. So thank you, Kelsie, for joining, and safe travels back.
All right, thanks, Sam. See you in New York.
With the minor league baseball 2015 season behind us, topics that are still brewing are reaching somewhat of a fever pitch in certain markets, and we wanted to bring in, we're going to talk about a Red Sox segment. I just used the term fever pitch. Whew, look at that baseball synergy.
I thought you hated Jimmy Fallon.
I do, and I hate that movie. So there we go. But Benjamin Hill joins us. Hey, Ben.
Hi.
So you have a couple of stories up on the site this week about the Pawtucket Red Sox and where they could be headed next. We have just a few times in the show been able to sort of break some news, and there is some breaking news about this situation. I'll quote from ballparkdigest.com, quote, "A proposed downtown Providence waterfront ballpark is dead as the Pawtucket Red Sox ownership informs state leaders that they'll search for another Rhode Island site, and staying at McCoy Stadium isn't an option." Now, Ben's columns up on the site right now discuss a lot about what it means for the Paw Sox as a franchise going forward with these movements in place. I mean, this looks like a thing that is for sure going to happen. And I guess where we are now with this new news is that we're not really entirely sure what that will mean if this Providence site is dead. Now, Ben spoke with Jeff White, who's a Red Sox executive. The official title of his position is financial advisor to the CEO, and there is a very lengthy conversation with Mr. White up on the site right now. Ben, just kind of give us a sense of what's going on around the situation.
Yeah, you summarized it a little bit there. We could talk about this for hours. The new ownership headed by Larry Lucchino and is that how you say it? Lucchino.
It's tricky because he has both the two C's and the H in there.
I write that name so often, and I so rarely say it. Yeah. The Paw Sox new ownership led by Larry Lucchino clearly wants to bring them to Providence. When I was in Pawtucket, I spoke to Jeff White, as you mentioned. They have a lot of rationale for why they want to do that, for why they feel it's best for the state in the long term, for why they feel Pawtucket is not a viable model in the long term, to support AAA baseball in the long term. I think they make some good points, but there's been a lot of opposition, a lot of problems with using any public money for something like this, especially in the wake of Curt Schilling's 38 Studios turning into a debacle. Rhode Island has a very low tolerance for public money on anything, and there's just a general skepticism that this is to line the pockets of already rich people as opposed to what's best for the baseball fans in Rhode Island. Now, as a result of the opposition, as a result of funding that is going to be unattainable as a result of maybe not getting all the land they needed for their proposed ballpark site. They've now scrapped the original Providence location, downtown urban waterfront, right off 195. And so now can they get another site in Providence? How much longer will they be in Pawtucket? Will outside markets outside the state of Rhode Island that might be more amenable to public funding of some sort step in? Your Worcesters and Springfields of the world. This is going to go on. And visiting Pawtucket was interesting just to be able to get the team perspective and the ownership perspective and also talk to the fans and also to visit that stadium, McCoy Stadium, myself, in order to get a sense of why that is a special place in so many people's hearts.
Yeah, and you kind of did a kind of cool call and response this week with the Farms pieces. You talked to White, like you said, but then you also just kind of sat in McCoy and got to hear some of the perspective of the fans. And just the way you wrote it was really interesting in that you posed a question to one fan and everybody in the section kind of erupted with their own opinions. What were those opinions that they were talking about, and how dear is McCoy to their kind of hearts?
Yeah, I have a lengthy Q&A up with the ownership side, and I knew I wanted to have something about the opposition explained as well. My problem is I'm only visiting these stadiums for one day, and sometimes it's hard to line up everything I need to do to make it as in-depth as I'd like. But I wanted to do something with the opposition. I was talking to a pair of longtime season ticket holders. I just kind of asked that question, what do you guys think about the move to Providence? And the whole section around me erupted, and I kind of got an accidental story out of that because I do believe that what they were telling me speaks to the opposition as a whole, which is, one, don't spend public money on this. If you're rich enough to buy the team, you're rich enough to pay for a ballpark. There's some people in Rhode Island who can't afford to even go to minor league baseball. Don't make their tax dollars go toward minor league baseball and subsidizing that.
And that seems to be a sentiment that's growing throughout every sport in every community. I mean, that's definitely not, like you said, it's kind of heightened in Rhode Island because of what they went through with the public money for Curt Schilling's studio, but that is definitely a growing sentiment nationally, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's always going to be in the back burner with any public funding. I think there are arguments that say there is a residual benefit to the community in investing in it publicly, but you have a lot of opposition to overcome, and for good reason. People are rightfully skeptical of where their tax dollars are going, not just in relation to minor league baseball stadiums. And then with McCoy, this stadium is 70-some years old, and people have grown up there, and their parents took them to games, their grandparents took them to games, and it's a region with a deep baseball history, and it's a unique ballpark. And people just don't want to give that up. So I got that sense, too, that as much as they're against the public funding, as much as they're against, they're worried about parking in Providence, worried about the traffic, worried about safety, I feel like a lot of the arguments that fans are making are, I don't want to say a cover, but the intensity of these arguments is maybe exacerbated by just how much they love McCoy. So they're going to argue everything they can more vociferously because McCoy means so much, because it's so ingrained in their own baseball experience, and it would just be so sad to let that go.
One of the things that you kind of encounter in a situation like this that's a rarity compared to a lot of places elsewhere in minor league baseball is we've seen a lot of classic ballparks go by and be replaced, and some communities have been upset. But we've talked over the last few weeks about how entrenched in Red Sox mania, the entire Red Sox culture, that whole region is. And for the non-Boston area of that, the epicenter is McCoy Stadium. The Paso are that. And so I think the intensity that surrounds it is so much more heightened, and it's so much louder because that fan base is a lot more intense and a lot more wide-ranging in that region. And the fact that it's a AAA team in a pretty large market with a very storied history. You didn't hear this necessarily to the same extent about Grayson Stadium in Savannah. Sure, there were people who were upset, obviously, but it wasn't quite the mass story that I think it is in Pawtucket. Do you know of a situation, Ben, that would really compare to this? I mean, especially now that it seems entrenched 100%, because I think for a time there was, well, is there a way that this ownership group can work with McCoy? Can there be a scenario that keeps the Paw Sox here? Now it seems like they're entrenched in, no doubt, getting this team out of that facility.
Well, that's what the ownership group wants to do for sure. There is definitely a renewed, governmental, approach to let's take a fresh look at McCoy. There is apparently the ownership has done a feasibility study on whether or not renovations to McCoy would make sense, but they've kept it under wraps so far, and that's made the opposition angry, saying, well, don't tell us it'll cost $65 million to renovate it if you can't even show us the figures, and back and forth and back and forth. But it's like you said, there's so much intensity around this. It is, in a way, a more amped-up version of what we just went through in Connecticut with New Britain leaving for Hartford next season. It's the same sort of thing. A older stadium in a comparably smaller city moving a very short distance, or potentially moving a very short distance, but that spurring a lot of emotions, because while the distance is short, the overall baseball atmosphere is very changed, and people who have become attached to the more old-fashioned baseball atmosphere really don't want to let that go. But it's like you mentioned, in Savannah, Grayson Stadium, that stadium's been around for almost 90 years in some capacity or another. And we didn't hear, on a national perspective, the anger that they're leaving or all that much sadness. I'm sure people were sad. And I think it's good to remember that as much emotion as the Pawtucket to Providence situation has stirred, you're still only in that situation talking about moving to a neighboring town. I do sometimes think a little perspective is needed. You're not losing your team completely. And that doesn't mean people shouldn't care or shouldn't be upset, but there still will be minor league baseball in your area. Don't forget that.
Well, one thing, too, that you kind of touched on, I think it was the kicker in your fans piece, was, they talked about, look at Fenway. And, New Englanders are kind of a nostalgic bunch. And when they have Fenway up the road, which was supposed to be torn up and, built something else new inside the city a decade ago, and they figured out a way to renovate that, they begin to think, why not us at McCoy? And, why can't this stay, especially when they're sitting in the seats like that? But to kind of pivot to something else you recently wrote, staying within Red Sox Nation, you wrote about a pitcher in the Red Sox system, Mike McCarthy, and his kind of charitable work and how kind of honest and sincere he seems with it. What can you tell us about Mike?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, this is the last sort of on-the-road MILB.com piece I've written this season. I've exhausted my content, even though the blog will go forever. But this story came out today. We were talking on Tuesday, and it's about Portland Sea Dogs pitcher Mike McCarthy, who's involved with an organization called Baseball Miracles, who I've gotten to know through the last couple of years. It was founded by a White Sox scout named John Taminia, and their mission is to teach baseball to disadvantaged, to poverty-stricken children around the world. And they've done trips to various regions in Ireland, to orphanages in South Africa. They've gone to some Indian reservations, I believe in the Dakotas. I know that Alaska's on their agenda. They're going to Kenya next month. So a really wide-ranging grassroots effort to spread the game of baseball globally, and to do it on a comparative shoestring budget. And Mike McCarthy is a pitcher. He met John Taminia just because Taminia was at one of the games in which he was pitching. Taminia was there scouting. They made a connection, and Mike McCarthy has now gone on 2 global baseball miracle excursions. He's going on 2 more this offseason to Kenya and Honduras. Throughout the season, he collects gear from his teammates to donate to these kids when he does go on these global missions. He's organized equipment drives at the stadium for fans to bring things. Just a really genuine guy who, his mission to be a volunteer and to put others first, isn't just lip service, isn't just, checking off a box for X amount of community service hours because he's a ball player. A really genuine guy who I enjoyed talking to, and doing some great work out there, and I'm happy to promote it a little bit. Mike McCarthy, Portland Sea Dogs, and Baseball Miracles.
It's a really, really cool story. Actually, I saw Baseball Ireland just tweeted out a link to it a short time ago as well. So it's already kind of, taken off among the international baseball community, people who have already read this story and checked it out. So go on to MILB.com and check out that story as well. And Benjamin Hill with all of your off-season pertinent news and information as well. It's good to talk to you, man. Well, obviously, this shows we're going to have no dearth of topics over the off-season, so we'll be doing it again soon.
Yeah, there will be no dearth. That's the new motto for the show. No dearth. And I'll talk to you guys next week from Columbus, site of the minor league baseball promotional seminar.
Sounds terrific, Ben. We'll talk to you then. Benjamin Hill is on Twitter. He is at Ben's Biz. You can follow him there. You can follow the blog at bensbiz.mlblogs.com. With the final game of the 2015 minor league baseball season in the books, we are wrapping up the very first season of the Show Before the Show podcast. 26 episodes, 3 hosts, 4 when you count Ben because he's a mainstay. And we've had a whole pile of fun this year. This has been awesome.
Yeah, no, and the good thing is we don't exactly have to wrap it up either. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Keep this going into the off season, and you'll still hear from us mostly every week, if not every week. And yeah, the fun won't stop just because the season has.
Absolutely. We'll be checking in with you throughout the offseason. As you heard Benjamin Hill, he's going to be in Columbus for the promo seminar, and the winter meetings are coming up in like 12 minutes. And so we're going to have stuff for you to listen to and mull over in your noggin as the offseason gets rolling along as well. And we're just a few weeks away from the start of the Arizona Fall League. Instructional leagues have already started in Florida and in Arizona. So you know that it's everything is drawing a little bit closer toward eventually it'll be pitchers and catchers reporting, and that's what we all hang on to during wintertime anyway. So
yeah, when it's the coldest day and it's 20 degrees here, it feels like -5. Even colder where you are in Denver. I think we'll just keep muttering to ourselves those February dates and feel a little warmer inside.
But we're going to have a lot of cool stuff coming up over the offseason, and we'll be checking in with Ben next week from the promo preview, or the promo seminar from the promo preview. We'll just be doing a promo preview for 2016. No, we'll check in with Ben from Columbus, and we'll talk to you guys about some of the finishing touches in this 2015 regular season, because just because the games are over doesn't mean that the moves are over, and more prospects still headed to the big leagues just as of this week. We've seen a lot of that, and so there's going to be a lot to talk about as the offseason gets started. So until then, thanks for tuning in throughout the 2015 season, and we'll talk to you then.